What is something most people don't know about the Bible? The King James Version of the Bible suffered a ton of misprints in its early history. One of the more famous misprints is the Wicked Bible or Adulterer's Bible from 1631. It gets its name from a misprinted version of Exodus 20:14, where the printer omitted the word not. Thus, the sixth commandment in this Bible reads, "Thou shalt commit adultery." It also has another egregious misprint appearing in Deuteronomy 5, the word greatness appearing as great arse, leading to "Behold, the Lord our God hath showed us his glory and his great arse." There's a talking donkey in the book of Numbers. It contains one recipe. The details of prominent characters in the Old Testament. Can't get your wife pregnant? Why hello new fertile girlfriend. If you beat your slave to death, then it's a sin. But if he lives for at least 3 days after the beating, then you're in the clear. The book of Judges is wild. Between Aid and Samson you could make a pretty badass action series. There's a verse about a woman lusting after guys with huge dicks like donkeys and who spew cum in the amount that horses spew. No joke. It even makes the horse and donkey comparisons. The Bible tells us that titans or giants Nephilim mated with humans a long time ago, Genesis 6:4. There are many apocryphal writings that didn't quite make it into official canon. Among them are the Gospel of St. Thomas, which consists of nothing more than things Jesus said. No commentary, no filler, just Jesus rap in with his brothers Judas and Mary got their own Gospels also. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys and whose emission was like that of horses. Ezekiel 23:20. Should we talk about the incest? And no, I don't mean Adam and Eve. A lot of stuff that's actually from the Divine Comedy or Paradise Lost is confused with biblical content. The Bible doesn't actually give that much detail about heaven, hell, or Lucifer. Matthew 6:5 and 6 gives specific instructions on not praying in public and tells you to pray in seclusion. 5 And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. 6 But when you pray, go into your room, close the door and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Old Testament goes hard. The Jesus in the Bible is pretty goddamn woke towards the less fortunate and marginalized and very resentful of the wealthy, thinking riches are a shortcut to salvation. If you made a movie or television show that's 100 accurate to the Bible, it would be rated X. Edit 666 upvotes as of this writing. Some stories from the Bible have such identical themes to Sumerian texts that it's difficult to believe it wasn't pulled from Sumeria. Didn't see Deuteronomy 22:28 mentioned yet. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed, and seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, 29 Then the man who lay with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has violated her. He may not divorce her all his days. So essentially, if a man finds a virgin and rapes her and is caught, he has to pay her dad for her and she is forced to marry him. 1. There are 2 stories of creation, one in Genesis 1 and one in chapters 2 and 3. Also 2 flood stories mashed together. 2. The apple in the Garden of Eden is actually an unnamed fruit. From what I understand, a pomegranate would be the most likely based on the region the story is said to take place, but please correct me if I'm wrong about that. There are dozens of great flood myths, much older than the Old Testament. Shortest sentence in the Bible: Jesus wept. That the New Testament Gospels about Jesus' life were recorded about decades later, and not written contemporaneously with his life. I was shocked to find that out, roughly college age. In Numbers 12 God punishes racism. 1 And Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman of very dark-skinned women. 10 And when the cloud was removed from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous, as white as snow, and Aaron looked upon Miriam and, behold, she was leprous. Translated by the Holy Scriptures according to the Masoretic text, the 1917 Jewish Publication Society. The Bible is frequently used to justify white supremacy, but this, in my opinion, is the only significant reference to race in the Masoretic text. Numbers 5:11-31. Basically, if a woman cheats on her husband shall bring her before a priest who will give her bitter water. If the bitter water causes a miscarriage, she cheated, and the curse will rid her of the fetus. If she didn't, then she will stay pregnant. Found this very interesting because it's very obvious that bitter water was a way to prevent or terminate pregnancies, and yet people still say the Bible was against abortion. That we don't know who wrote most of it. The serpent in the garden is a serpent. It's described as the most cunning of the beasts. It didn't get retrofitted into Satan until much later. Catholics and Protestants have different Bibles. The Apocrypha is canon to Catholics, but not Protestants. God had 2 she-bears eat a bunch of kids because they teased a guy for being bald. It has straight-up dark and brooding existentialist literature in it, the Book of Ecclesiastes. The Gospels, as they are Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, are not in chronological order, and were all written long after Jesus' life. The first Gospel, Mark, makes no mention of a virgin birth, which is curious. Romans were the ones that crucified Jesus, yet the Vatican is in Rome. It gives instruction about how to perform an abortion if a man suspects his wife of infidelity. Nowhere in Genesis is it said that Adam is the first human, or that Eve is the first woman. In fact, if you read the first 2 chapters as chronological, God created humans on the 6th day, and then created Adam later on, which corresponds well with the rest of Genesis, since there were definitely people around not related to Adam, e.g. those that chilled with Cain. Also, Adam's name is never mentioned. Adam literally means a man or a person. It's a translation of some of the things a committee decided was acceptable thousands of years ago. It's shocking really how few people understand that. Despite being attributed to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we actually have no idea who wrote the Gospels. That not only does it endorse abortion, it gives you instructions on how to do it. Poor Seth. Slavery was just a normal thing for the Bible. Seems like most American evangelicals don't realize that Jesus said to be nice to people. As in everybody. Not just their WASP crowd. Unamused face. Ezekiel 16. Not to be confused with Ezekiel 23, which is much more famous as being essentially buckache porn in the form of a political cartoon. Ezekiel 16, on the other hand, is straight up NTR. And none of that non-explicit shoujo stuff like the Book of Hosea either. We pretty much watch God play the part of the husband crying in the corner while watching his bride ride a train of younger, hotter, and yes, the book actually states this, better endowed paramours. And I'm leaving out the spicy bits. That the first half is the backbone of a separate religion, Judaism. There are straight-up forgeries that made it into the Bible, like 1st and 2nd Timothy. Also, the last few verses of Mark were likely added later. It originally ended with the 3 women visiting Jesus' tomb, fleeing and never telling anyone. Verse 9 is sort of awkwardly added on and doesn't make sense. Read verses 1-8, then 9 the end, and you'll notice the weirdness and further theological reasons it was added. That it wasn't written by Jesus. It's weird how many people think that. When you get past all the history lessons, it just boils down to this. Pay your taxes. Commit to doing charity and do so with an open heart. Don't force your beliefs on others. Strive to understand your world and be merciful in it. I've met, maybe, a dozen people who live by those values. The Bible is essentially a long green text for post. Most things. God creates man, twice. First on the sixth day, then again when he creates Adam. One might assume both events are the same event, but when Cain kills Abel, he runs away and finds another set of people that he lives with. Where did these other people come from? Well, if we take the fact he created man on the sixth day, and again Adam as a separate event, it makes sense there are other people outside of their family. That Jesus taught his second coming was imminent, as in within their lifetimes. Matthew 16:28. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here, which shall not taste of death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Apocrypha such as Lilith and Legend of the Wandering Jew are